Welcome to the 75th edition of Women's Wrestling Weekly, the show. I am Kyle Klingman, joined by Scott Beck. Scott, I did not get enough of our 25-minute long conversation about coaching. We went back and forth, good commentary on the coaching piece, what it means to be a great coach. Do athletic credentials matter? You probably lean a little bit more towards saying, I want to see an Olympic gold medalist in my corner and know that that person is there to support me. I have actually probably swung a little bit more the other way in saying I don't think credentials mean all that much, athletic credentials, to a coaching resume. I think it's such a unique position that if I had to say one way or the other, now for recruiting, does it matter? Yes, it does. I think saying that I'm a world champ, Olympic medalist, Olympic gold medalist, does that absolutely fundamentally help you? If you're David Taylor, if you're Cale Sanderson, if you're Clarissa Chun, if you're Dan Gable, it absolutely does. I think having that resume helps. But as far as just intangibles for coaching, I'm of the opinion I think there's so much more to it than the shiny Olympic gold medal.
Yeah, Kyle, I think you're speaking a little out of turn for me. I don't think it has to be an Olympic gold medal, but I want somebody that's wrestled and somebody that knows what it's like to compete at a high level, especially again for the higher level athletes. I don't think to be a great high school or college coach, but if you're coaching people that are aspiring to be somebody's competing in a world team trials, world championships. I think it helps if somebody's been there, but I'm open to being wrong about that. And I've seen great coaches that are not great wrestlers, and there are great coaches that never wrestle. So I don't think it's an absolute. I'm just saying what I would prefer. Like if I was going to get in a street fight, I'd prefer Bruce Lee behind me. You know what I mean?
Well, I get what you're saying, but I thought a good parallel would be in the movie business, making a movie. As far as I know, Martin Scorsese's never been nominated for an Academy Award as an actor. Neither has Steven Spielberg as an actor. They haven't been there, done that, other than maybe a few cameos, but they know how to bring the best out of you, get
Yeah.
that feel, get what you need to get on screen. It doesn't matter if they were a great actor or not. I think that's a good parallel to what it means to be a coach. They're a director.
Yeah, I don't want to get in that analogy because even though my sister-in-law is an actress, I'm not a big fan of actors and actresses in general. So I wouldn't use that as the analogy, in my opinion.
From what I understand, Alexio Garcia McKendry, who coached the inaugural NCAA team championship, it sounds like he maybe didn't wrestle, played soccer.
I don't think I thought he wrestled more than he did. It sounds like I guess I thought I've been with him. Yeah, I mean he knows technique. I've been with him in trips with teams, and yeah, maybe I overstated in my head his wrestling accolades.
I just interviewed Mia Cienega, who had incredible insight on why she went to Wartburg College.
Brady Kyner, he's such a positive guy. He's an optimist. He was really kind to me and my family, like through meeting and talking to him at national tournaments. Fun fact, my grandma goes to all of those with me, and like every single time without failure, he would like greet not only me, but also like my mom and my grandma, and like first name basis. And he was always reaching out, making calls, texts, checking on me, like just asking how I was doing. And I think that's really important to like want to reach out and get to know who you're recruiting. It leaves an impact.
And I think there's just so much to that on how you connect. And Jim Miller, who was the longtime coach at Wartburg, 22 seasons, 10 NCAA Division III championships, who would be his counterpart before Brady Kyner got there, he said, here's the key to coaching: consistently show up and care. And I think that's an
Absolutely.
example of doing it right and being in that system of showing that you care. When you see in the corner that person cares about me, I don't think their credentials really matter.
Well, I would say two things. First of all, Jim Miller was a pretty good wrestler. Okay, just
He
saying
was.
that, right? He very accoladed, good wrestler, a great wrestler. But I think connection is very important, and I've said that, and I think even more so with women than men. I'm not trying to like come off sexist. I think connection really matters, and if a coach, connects with you and cares, and I said that's the one thing you can have the greatest accoladed coach, and if they ignore you or don't connect to you, you're just going to feel like a piece of meat in a factory. That you're just a number. And I think that's the other side of it. Like maybe somebody's the greatest coach in the world, but if they're not connecting to you or they have X amount of bandwidth, but if you are in an intimate situation where you have a good connection and that coach has bandwidth for you and really cares about you, that's really important. But that's an analogy in life. Like whoever you work for at any job, you want to feel a connection to your boss and that they care and that they're vested in your success. And I think that's the key. Is this coach vested emotionally and by deed in your achieving your goals, or at least helping you be on the path to achieving your goals and understanding you?
And I think that's why Joe Norton has been successful at North Central. And we'll go back to the Carius, who was cross country and track. I think it was 29-time NCAA championships for track and cross country between divisions. I think it's indoor, outdoor, cross country.
These were the striped uniforms, right?
The stripes. Yeah. I love that. But he studied and had conversation after conversation after conversation, notes and notes and notes with Carius. And there were times he had a situation, he went to him, this is what I'm dealing with. Carius knows nothing about wrestling, but he was able to say, here's what's happening right now, and here's what you have to do to alleviate the problem or to fix the problem. I just think there's coaching principles. And if I were the University of Iowa women's coaches, I would be at Gable's house once a month, getting that notebook out and just wringing him dry, because he's in his 70s. You want to make sure all that knowledge gets pen to paper. Gable's a genius, and you want to use the resources around you.
You know, it's funny. A coach is a unique, especially in in individual sport, whether it's maybe running or wrestling, or it's just so you're playing so many different roles. You're a mentor in life, a teacher of technique, a psychologist, a therapist, a doctor, a nutritionist. I mean, obviously you have a team of people behind you, but a really good coach understands all of it and can parcel it out when appropriate.
When you look at just the coaching level, it's just relatability. And two coaches that come to mind are assistant coaches, Sami Lusk and Emma Cochran, both wrestled at Grandview, and they just have the intangible. Sami Lusk is at Wartburg, so she is an assistant with Brady Kyner, and then Emma Cochran's an assistant or associate head coach with Jeff McGinnis at Simpson College. They just understand that relational piece and their credentials. And even Emma Cochran has talked about that. She wasn't as good of a wrestler as she is a coach because she's been able to translate some of the things she had to go through. And they both have that. And that's why I think they're going to be on the rise as far as next young coaches.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That connection is so important. And just a little known fact that you and I have talked a lot, and you don't even know this, and I've never told you this. When I was younger, everyone said, what do you want to do, professionally? And my goal, in high school, was I wanted to be a high school wrestling coach. And, I've had some success in life, ups and downs and things, and professionally. And I tell you, I'm still not sure. Maybe I would have been happier as a wrestler. I don't know, but I'm not convinced that I chose the right path as a trader and a investor and things. And I think I would have liked being a wrestling coach a lot, to tell you the truth.
Well, it because you would be good at it because of the psychology. And the psychology is why I think Gary Kurdelmeier is so underappreciated and why Iowa City or the University of Iowa has the tradition it does. This story needs to be on repeat. He was only there 4 seasons, but he had the foresight to say, I'm going to put Gable in. He planted someone in Ames, Iowa, and said, we are going to steal this guy from Ames, Iowa State.
Yes, he gets overlooked a little bit if you don't really know the history.
Exactly.
And look out there,
They were getting chintzy with a box of tape. Well, you go back. Let's talk about a Cresco, Iowa native, Gary Kurdelmeier. He's the reason Iowa has their tradition it does, because he said, I'm going to get Dan Gable to Iowa City. I'm going to get him away from Ames. He planted people there. But there's a great story about athletic tape. Would you take us through that and the importance of how that one move by Gary Kurdelmeier impacted all of the history of the state of Iowa?
Some people just think, and this is, you got to go back. Remember what I'm talking about right now, all this time? It's pretty simple stuff. Being married your whole life to the same woman, if you can, treating people well. doing things, making good money, going to heaven. It's all of a sudden I had a bad, I got hurt in wrestling, and I needed some tape. And University of Iowa, they were talking to me about coming to be a coach there, but I was taping myself up, my arms and my knee. I hurt my knee. That was the big one. And all of a sudden, I looked, and they had a case of tape for me. And I had been in the training room, I think before that, and it was like I had to buy the tape, or you had to go down and do something, and they wanted to give me something to help me be successful. And that's how simple I am sometimes. It wasn't really the job, the money, but at the time when I needed a case of tape to get me through the Olympic Games, it was an easy case. And somebody got smart, and they realized who I was. That wasn't full of money, it was full of tape. But I didn't have any problem having tape for 2 months. And it meant a lot to me. A little simple thing like that.
That doesn't mean anything about what his coaching credentials are. That's just brilliance. That's just playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers. Yeah. And Iowa City hasn't been the same since. That's why Iowa women have their tradition as one man having the foresight to go to Ames, Iowa, and get Dan Gable. That is coaching genius right there. And that needs to be celebrated more than it is.
And Penn State also had in foresight to steal Cale Sanderson from Iowa State. So imagine what would have been like. Not that Kevin Dresser's not done a very good job, which he has recently, and Bobby Douglas and the others, but some pretty good people have been stolen, and maybe Iowa State, something in Ames, they should have held on to their own a little bit better.
But think about that. Right now, it could be Ames, Iowa's Wrestletown, USA, and Iowa City. But it took Gary Kurdelmeier saying, "I'm going to get this guy because I know he's a game changer." And then you go from, I think it was 11th to 7th to 5th to 1st to 1st, and then he takes over, and then you're on to history.
Yeah, and Cale didn't do too poorly wrestling at Iowa State before Penn State took him.
Yeah. It makes and they did the same thing. They said, "We want this guy." And that's what happened.
They didn't hold their own. Maybe you got to appreciate your own and what you have, maybe.
Now, talking about, I think we may have mentioned this at one point. We talked about Terry Steiner. He's an NCAA champion. But if you have to look at him being an NCAA champion, and that's a huge part of his legacy, but he got that NCAA title by the skin of his teeth. Go YouTube Terry Steiner.
Yeah, I remember.
1993.
It was the guy from Penn State. It was
Roy Sunderland.
Yeah, Sunderland, right? That, by the way, might have been the biggest whisker of getting a call go your way at the end of a match. I mean, that was insane. He tried a lateral drop and then got a Gobi. That was an insane scramble at the end to get it.
I give it to the aggressor.
Yeah, it's right. He went for it. Yeah. Sunderland would, I'm sure, like to take that back. But I would have thought less of Terry if he was an NCAA runner-up. I mean,
but there's a magic thing. You're magic to saying you're an NCAA champion, and Terry has the magic to say you're an NCAA champion from Iowa, but to go back and learn the story about how he did it. And then there's even a greater story about him losing in the Big Tens, feeling really burnt out. Gable and Zaleski kicked him out of the room and said, "You can't come back," because he needed a break. And then he felt refreshed.
And there's also the whole sibling, and Terry and Troy are exceptionally tight, right? But there is a sibling rivalry thing a little bit where Troy started before him. Troy won the NCAA title the year before. And of course, when Terry won, Troy didn't win, but he looked pretty happy cheering. If you see the video, it cuts to Troy. But, it's very funny with brothers, twins especially. They never seem to win at the same time. Even Satiev won 3 Olympic golds. His brother Adam won the year he didn't win when he got beat. So Saitiev loses to Slay, and then his brother Adam, who was phenomenal wrestler, wins. The Petersons never won in the same year in the Olympics. You know, the Brands didn't win in the same year of the Olympics. There is like history is littered by twins that they never seem to be happy or win at the same time in their Olympic or NCAA titles. It's amazing.
Now, go back to something you said last time. I'm of the same opinion as you on this. I don't care what the gender is. If you know how to coach, you know how to coach. And I think
100%.
someone that needs to be locked in on Katherine Shai, she knows how to coach, male or female. I think she's one of the most intellectual, best technical coaches. I think she's got a great mind for this. I think if she wanted to get into college coaching, she'd be great at men's or women's. I think she's that high.
I think for sure. First of all, I'm fortunate enough to have interacted with her in my life. I remember McKill was going on her first trip to Clip-On, and Katherine was going to compete, and she was friends from Menlo with Jackie Davis. So I had dinner with her the night before. We went to a place near Beat the Streets, and I said, "Okay, just do me a favor, keep an eye on this girl, please. It's her first trip abroad." And McKill, I think got killed or whatever, but she's a great person. She's got a great wrestling mind. I love hearing her talk about wrestling. Her family, obviously, is a wrestling family. Her sister, her mother, Joan. I mean, they just really embody, not just, and the dad, Alan, I mean, they are just a wrestling family with tremendous knowledge and resources. She'd be phenomenal. She's a great person. She'd be a phenomenal coach, man or woman.
Yeah, I think she could coach a men's team. I mean, if
she could coach a dog team, she could coach anything. She can coach, and she knows the sport very well. And she's a competitor.
She's great,
tough, and just phenomenal. She'd be great.
And you saying that just influence. You want to talk about that family? That's one of the most influential families on wrestling
in the wrestling community.
Ever.
I mean, sure, absolutely, top to bottom. You have the father and the uncle were Olympians, or I believe in Greco, right? I think. Lee Allen and and I think Katherine and her sister. Her mother's a junkie. I mean, you go to the U.S. Open, Joan Allen's there. I mean, they are just a wrestling family. Great people.
Mia Cienega, who will wrestle at 207 pounds for Wartburg College. She also had some interesting things to say about the recruiting process.
One of the things I really considered, just like their coaching style as a 207, a heavier athlete. I've noticed like throughout my years of wrestling, my personal experience, heavier athletes, especially women, tend to get pushed to the side. And I wanted to find a coach who was really going to support me for my style of wrestling and who I am as a person. A trend that I noticed, like through my personal recruiting, is the lighter weights, the world weights, tend to get more attention than the heavier athletes. So I always made it a point to ask, like, how is your coaching style going to help me? Because I don't wrestle the same as like the 100, 120 pounders. So like, how are you going to help with my development as a heavier athlete? And that was huge for me. With a world weight, you go to Pan-Ams, you go to world team trials. To me, it's free advertising for your college. Like, look, my athlete did all this amazing stuff, and it brings attention and makes people want to go to your college. I'm not going to world team trials or the Pan-Ams. There's not a weight class for me yet, hopefully. So I feel like we tend to get pushed to the side a little bit. And as a bookend, you've seen in the national duels and, the championships, like it comes down to your heavyweight. Like points can make or break your team's score.
And I appreciated her insight, and I really think that needs to change if that's the dynamic right now, because I think she explained it, that a lot of times they say this will help propel our program forward if we have someone that makes a world team or a Pan-Am team, then we can celebrate that. You can't do that at 207 because it's 167 or 207. That's 40 pounds different. I really think that needs to change. That's a bad thing if that's happening.
The gap is big, and maybe it does. And listen, you and I have not always been perfect, and maybe we haven't talked about the non-Olympic weights as much as we should. I guess it's human nature because we focus on international. But But meanwhile, who are we talking about when we're talking about these duels and the tournaments? We're talking about heavyweights a lot because they matter so much to the teams. So, we try to do a better job and we need to keep doing it. And I think the community needs to. And if you're recruiting, I mean, these are the weights that determine dual meets. They have all the pressure on them at the end of the matches a lot, and the lightest weight as well. I think, the beauty about wrestling is its inclusivity. And, I think we can, and we're trying to be the best we can, trying to be better. And I think, on the recruiting front, it is important. And I think these weights should be focused on.
Especially at heavyweight, because at 103 you can bump up to 110. You just really can't cut down to 167.
That gap is too much. It's too much. I don't love that 40-pound gap. I think it's not. It could be adjusted.
But to your point, think of the excitement we had this year at the national duels, where 180 and 207 made all the difference, and they were the most exciting weights. So we need to celebrate those more. And I appreciated Mia's candor on that topic.
Yeah, and you know what? These ladies are good. It's not like, for the most part, I'm not saying you could watch a match at, 124 pounds where nobody does anything the whole match. And, there were times at the heavier weights, they don't do. These ladies are good, and they wrestle. And we've seen that. We have seen action. We've seen technique. We've seen leg attacks. So I don't love the gap. It's a good point you make. You can't, you can bump up from the lowest. You can't. You're not going to cut down 40. But we have seen some of those weights where you have ladies that are tweeners kind of and can, not to an Olympic weight necessarily, but, can drop a weight and go up and down.
How about the U17 Pan-Ams? It probably starts and stops with Eve Skrocki. What a match. That was like a Rocky Balboa prize fight in the finals, 10-9. It went back and forth. You had at the break, the opponent was getting the crowd into it. That was wild, Scott, for her to come back like that.
Yeah, it was a great match. I'll tell you something. First of all, the thoughts I have, just, I watched a bunch of that tournament. I'd say, broadly speaking, we're really good as a country. So the question is, are we just pulling away, or these other countries getting worse? I think we're pulling away at the younger levels. I do. We just dominate, men's and women. Ladies, well, we do. And it's funny, the lady that Skrocki wrestled, I saw her semifinal match, and I watched Eve kind of kill people in the first couple of matches. I'm like saying to myself, this is going to be a good match. She was a physical specimen. They both are. I mean, Eve is just very, very, physical and a physical specimen. And, she gave up the 4 and the double out of the gate, maybe got caught a little just sleeping for a second. Had to come back, but controlled center after that. That was a back and forth match and gave up a late takedown. It got close, but that was a good match. It was an exciting match. I'd say they were both just, for 17 years old, just very athletic, very strong. But you know what? I texted her dad. I mean, I'm glad that, her dad, Aaron, I'm glad that she gets that match. I don't want to just, you don't want just, is it fun to just kill everybody? But that lady was good from the Dominican Republic. And I'm glad that she had to win a match that way and wrestle that match. Those are the matches that make you better. Is it fun to just attack everybody and kill everybody? You want to wrestle that girl and come back and beat her like that. That's builds character. That's how you grow. And I think it was a good gut check for her. So it was good to see.
Yeah,
and congrats to Team USA. Did a great job in that tournament. Very, very good team, top to bottom. We're not going to go through every weight, but just a great team.
Did Aaron have anything to say about his nerves during that match when you talked to him?
No, he didn't. But I think he knew it was going to be a good match. I think he saw her the same way I did in the semis, And he said it was a good job by in the corner between periods where they're like, you better go in there and dominate the ties, move forward, and do your stuff. Go get it. And you have Angel Cejudo in your corner. It's a pretty good thing.
Another person we've talked about on the show, Landri Von Gonten, won the
Yes,
U17 Pan-Am. She looked so solid through
she's
that.
good.
And it was fun. We've talked about her so much and got to see her dad and Landry at the NCAA Women's Championship. She qualified there, and then they stayed for the NCAA Championships. Again, I just love that combination where you have a tournament and then you can be good and you can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it. And I'm glad that Landry and her family were there to support that and see it.
Yeah, she looked really good. She's really good, and she did a great job. And yeah, it's yeah, I'll tell you, that was a fun venue. If you watch the matches in the back, you saw the American contingent. And by the way, most abused term ever. People say contingency. A contingency is an alternative plan. A contingent is a group of supporters. Okay, so great American contingent supporting our athletes at the Pan-Ams. And that was abused, by the way. That was misused by one of the announcers in the NCAA championships. Just you can go back and listen. Um, but but then you had the contingent from whether it was South America in general or from the Panamanian fans or the Dominican Republic, but there were like two sides going on, and you heard the cheering, and it was great to see. It was fun. It was a good crowd at that event, and what you see with the Pan-Ams, especially at the younger age, they tend to be in these smaller, little intimate venues. And trust me, the facilities, because I was in one in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and the toilet was backing up onto the practice mats in the restroom. Okay, but you get a little down and dirty, and you learn to realize that we have it pretty good in the United States, But nevertheless, these are intimate, kind of fun venues, and it was good to see the crowd. We just pretty much, for the most part, blitzed through this thing. We had a couple of losses, but not many, and the team looked really sharp across the board.
Let's blitz through this as we close this out. We have women's nationals. There's U17 spots. There's U20 spots, U23 nationals. We have entry lists for the U.S. Open. Let's start with the U.S. Open. 50 kilograms loaded. I know that Audrey Jimenez is not going to be competing this year, so we will have a different world team member at the senior level. Congratulations to Audrey for being the wrestler of the year. USA Wrestling renamed that the Anthony Maroulis Wrestler of the Year, which is well deserved because they were both the first four-time WCW champion.
Frasers, yeah.
Yeah. And really cool to see what this 110 50 kilogram bracket looks like.
I'll just say it's insane, okay? Because to me, you have Katie Gomez drop down. So she's registered at 50. And you have Aaron Goldstein, who it seems like it might be her turn. Gomez down there. You have Emily Shilson, who looked great at the Bill Farrell. Katie Valdez, among others. And I want to, Felicity Taylor is registered at 50 now. This is pretty insane. Well, I want to see Morgan Turner where she is versus everybody. This could be her coming out party. Is she ready to beat these Sage Mortimer, Emily Gonzalez, Al Solera, Sterling Diaz, Samara Chavez? This weight class is Kendra Ryan, Kalani Schufeld. It's Mia Palumbo. This is stacked. All the weights are stacked, really. I've looked through them. But as I just read it, it's insane. To me, you have a lot of, experienced athletes. And then we have Morgan Turner you throw in there. I want to see where she is. It's going to be really interesting. So that tournament's stacked. With women's nationals coming up is stacked. These brackets are 90 people and some. It's insane. The Senior Open, everything is. I'm like a kid in a candy store now, frothing to watch all this stuff. It's going to be insane. So that's really exciting, and we'll talk about all of that. I'm sure we'll do US Open preview. I'm sure we'll do a women's nationals post-op. But the weight classes are stacked utterly.
It's so fun to see when you get the age level go into the U.S. Open. I think that's fun because we've always talked about that when you can mix and match. And then just talking about Sarah Hildebrandt's back. She's at 53. She was the Olympic gold medalist at 50. She's moving up 3 kilos. She's been there before. She's won world medals there before. But to have Sarah Hildebrandt back, that adds a new element to it. There's just so much fun going into the 2028 Olympics. And don't think people aren't thinking this is the pole position. You have Las Vegas 2027 for the World Championships, and then you have LA 2028. You want to wrestle in front of your hometown. You want to wrestle in front of your home country. That's a special thing. And I think the allure of that is just too much for some of these high-level wrestlers.
Oh yeah, and you know, it's easier said than done. Just retiring, you know, this is what a lot of these athletes have done, and it's easy to say, well, okay, so Sarah, you know, won the Olympic gold medal, just be done. But you try that, and she's a competitor, you know. And what do competitors do? They compete. You know, and then like you're saying, then you add that the Olympics are back in Los Angeles. So, and it doesn't mean just because Sarah comes back and wrestles, maybe she comes back and just, you know, wins or whatever. But maybe she says, I don't want to do this 3 more years. I don't know. I don't think just because you come back means you're committing and going all in. I'd be surprised if she doesn't, but who knows? But she's a force at 53 now, and she's serious. And she's going to be competitive at any weight class. Literally, she'd probably be competitive any weight up to 59, if not 62. I mean, she's good, you know. So we'll just see, you know. And there's a lot going on right now, and I love the concept that we could all pontificate about how these younger athletes do, you know, when they finally, you know, compete. Well, guess what? Now we're going to see where Morgan Turner is. And I'm excited to see how she does. And this weight class is absolutely stacked, as they all are. And we'll go through them. And you know, just one thing I want to touch on. So we have the senior Asians coming up like today. But evidently, Tsugumi Sakurai retired. So she was the Olympic champ at 57. Ran the quad, not all at 57, won world 55, 57, 57, and 57 in the Olympics. And I guess she's being some type of international representative or something. You know, she had Kotaro Kyuka, who won the men's Olympic gold medal at 65 and killed everybody, which he shocked me. Was he beat Khalili from Iran, who looked unbeatable. You know, won the Olympics, and you know, his sister wrestles, Mo Kyuka, at 53, is a world champ, but she retired. So great career, Tsugumi Sakurai, ran the quad, the only athlete really that won all 4, you know, 3 worlds and Olympics. So she's retired, great career. Just want to mention that.
And interesting, when we talk about retirement, we just talked about Sarah Hildebrandt. We won't know for sure. Maybe she decides to come back. Maybe she gets the itch again. We don't know. So there's just always that possibility. But for now, she's in retirement. What a career. When you can say you ran the quad, that's a special thing on the resume.
Yeah, we don't know, but that's pretty special. Yeah, especially just to make the team 4 years in a row in Japan is pretty amazing.
And then when you were talking about 50 kilograms, my first thought was someone's not placing. I mean, a bunch of people that are really good aren't going to be in the top 8, which is insane to think about. But then you go up to 62 and just think about, it may not have that real deepness, but then you just look at who's there and who is really good. And someone quality is not going to make the finals there, because I think you have Aduga Wachukwu, you have Macy Kilty. I think you have Kayla Miracles moving up to 65.
Up, yeah.
Yeah. So 62.
So you have Katie Lang,
Yeah.
You have Alara Boyd. I mean, you have Savannah Cosme. I mean, it's good people. I mean, Mikhail said, you look at men's 65, there's going to be some insane, amazing athlete that's like an NCAA champ that's going to take 8. They have to. It's insane.
It's coming up. Women's Nationals, U.S. Open. We talk coaching. Scott, what's the final word?
I think the final word is let's rock and roll. Good stuff. Starting with Women's Nationals. This is the heart of international season. So let's see where the cards fall.